Podcasting from Portland East to Portland West, from Big Pine Key to Pacific Beach, and from San Juan to Guam, this is All Across America. Nancy Orlen Weber, it's great to have you on All Across America, and it's we were just been talking, and again, it's so great to be with you today, and thanks for joining us.
I am so happy I have gotten to meet you.
Well, that's great. Same here. Same here. You've been called the psychic detective. You've titled your book Psychic Detective. You've sold detective. There's a lot of different names. And what most people know as what you do? What do you call what you do? And what is it that you do?
I do me as much as I can. And me happens to love solving mysteries ever since I can remember. Puzzles, didn't matter
Right.
what. I love it. So I know that that's who I am. What I do with it, I always quote Da Vinci, that guy, Lenny, he said, when asked, I think it was a letter from a brother or something, how could he do everything like that? He said, I point the light in a direction. So I'm not, Nancy is a psychic detective. No, these are just labels
Right.
to help people know that I'm curious. I'm into anything that I can help out, make a difference. I love making a difference and seeing the lights go on in other people. I love that. That's just happiness in a in a moment
Yeah.
that
Right.
is
How can we replicate
cascade,
that? Yeah.
right? I love that. So me does a lot of different things. Me. But it's always me, the hub, and then all the spokes in the wheel. And it looks like I get a lot done, but truthfully, I take a lot of time for myself too. Those are me times where anything goes, including
And
trouble.
well, maybe
Yeah,
we'll get to the trouble part in a bit when you're ready to reveal more, or
sure, some of it. Anything my children know, anybody can know. If I haven't told them, and they're not babies, I know me. They're probably older than you by now, but I do not share anything unless my kids are aware of it. That's been
yeah,
my case all along to keep them
yeah.
safe and happy, and also knowing, yeah, that she's a wild one.
So you talked about this ability of having it early on in your life. Well, I mean, when was there a first time that you could remember noticing that you have it? And I mean, a lot. And I read three of your books. Thank you so much for sharing them as much as I could. And you did talk about your relationship with your family and in a way having to suppress that. And what's your? There's a whole lot in there.
Okay, so let's go simple for now. One, I had an imaginary friend that turned out to be a great teacher to me because it demonstrated when I looked at something I didn't understand, the words would come seemingly out of that male voice. Who knows what that is? I had a name for it only later on in life. I was given a name. I had no clue what this was, but I didn't care. It was telling the truth. And so truth became a very important feature for me. Uh, and the funny part, some people will relate to very well, is I would see when people were lying as a child. I think a lot of children do. Did you?
I can't remember, to be honest. I can't remember, but I do. I mean, I have two small children, and I think hard to tell. Sometimes they're better at it, and sometimes not. So I haven't. I don't know.
But that teaches you and cues you in sometimes, right? So I think sometimes is better than no time
Yeah.
because no one's perfect on anything. So I'm not a perfectionist, never have been, which sometimes gets me in trouble, particularly with a husband who's a perfectionist when it comes to grammar or a sentence.
Right.
But I'm great at spelling, so ha ha ha.
I love the term "don't let perfect be the enemy of the good."
Oh, I love that.
And so often it's the case. I mean, there are some things that are super serious, maybe not so much, but
Right.
most of the time I feel like that works. So
The only time I use it is I'm perfectly me.
there you go.
Don't want to hide. And so I hid as a child a
Yeah.
lot, as you know. And I found that I could see what was an illusion and what was the truth, and why didn't people speak the truth? Confused me.
Yeah.
It's very confusing. I would play a little game with my parents about because they didn't believe me on serious things that happened. They ignored them. So I would purposely make up a lie, and they would believe it. Wait a minute. Don't tell your kids this. Don't let them hear. And I'm sorry, folks. Don't hear that one. But yeah, I would purposely lie because I was so annoyed if they're not
Wow.
believing me. I was testing it and I thought, that's crazy.
Wow. Wow.
But isn't
Um, uh, yeah, folks' relationship with parents and other, I guess, authority figures in some way, it changes the dynamic and approach to many, many things. So,
I'm laughing because you have children, so be careful
right.
what you say now.
Yes, and I know.
Well, mine are so much older that it
Right.
doesn't matter at this point. They're all good, you know.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
They're used to me.
And one of the things that I wanted to talk about, in particular, this is a podcast, and meet with a lot of wonderful people all across the country. And I mentioned before we started, for me, it's a lot about connecting, and you get a sense of understanding people. And I've always felt I had an intuition about people, but it's just an intuition, and I think a lot of people feel they have intuitions in certain ways. And but you do how do you connect it to intuition? And it feels like you're saying that almost everybody could access this in some way.
Yes, of course. We all can. So I'm going to go a little sideways for a moment.
Please.
The root of the word psychic comes from the Greek word psyche. And it also, there's another word, and it's pronounced shikaiko. And that always meant the whole, the soul, the whole of some being called the soul, right? And because we in English think we can gather that and just instead of saying soul, we said psychic from psyche, Psyche.
Right.
Are you kidding? It's all the same. There's no
Yeah.
real, so intuition tells us there's a lot more to us, right?
Right.
And the more we do it, we know physiology now, the gut-brain connection, and the wrong bacteria,
Sure.
wrong
Sure.
information, etc. So clean your gut and clarity. I use some essential oils for incredible focus and clarity. I've used them for over 20 something years. I don't know. I lost
Hmm.
count along the way, studied chemistry.
Yeah.
So I have always loved no tools and then only the most safe ones for the earth and for myself.
Right.
And when I began to use them, I could recover quicker from pretty much anything. So I
Wow.
use tools sometimes, and sometimes not. So gut and intuition also speaks about restoration of any loss of trust within ourselves, not about others, but within ourselves.
Wow. Okay.
Okay? So if we have an intuition and we don't follow it, we want to kick ourselves afterwards. That's called hindsight.
Right.
We have a sense of something,
Hindsight.
but we don't know why. Like,
Right.
um, I, I'm kind of funny about that. When I get asked to do anything, if I feel good about it, if I like it, I jump in and I don't care about the consequence. It's all good.
All right. Yeah.
I'm willing. So that's restoration of the trust from broken trust. You realize that the first trust you have to gain back if you lost it is about trusting
Yeah.
yourself, right?
Yeah.
Once you do that, intuition grows naturally and you get insight. Okay. Once we have that, we start recognizing Now there's more. We get more creative. We're not afraid. So the energy we spent on fearing the outside in any sense, we now have more energy. And that calms us down, calms the nervous system down, calms the nervous system is the mind and brain cells, the combo, and that we have a computer in our skull. It is the original computer for us. Some people figured that out and went, oh, what if we parallel that? Except it cannot do it the way we do it. But I learned not to judge my thoughts. Get rid of the ones that don't work, put in something that does. That I think it was from sales pitch or something you learned decades ago somewhere in a magazine, fake it to make it.
Of
So,
course.
right? So long before NLP, neuro linguistics programming, I used to put in my thoughts. I'd hit the now called delete button. I would erase it on a blackboard before in my mind and
Wow.
input the words I wanted. And
Okay.
I realized anything I did that I needed to break a pattern, I would start writing. It's amazing how I used to, blah, 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 whatever it was. And now it's amazing how fast I am recovering from all of that. My health has improved, my mind has improved. I'm thinking better. I'm moving. Oh, I'm so excited.
Wow.
And even though I would still be, if they were diagnosing me, trouble, but I didn't care. I was going to input a new software program in my brain.
Okay. I mean, and these sound like affirmations.
Good idea. We'll call them that. The old labels, when people would say to me early on, oh, you do psychic readings. I said, I do what? I never labeled. Oh, do you know remote viewing?
Yes, yes, yes.
Right? Uh,
Right.
and so many say, how come you don't tell us you can do remote view? I said, children do remote viewing. Are you kidding me? Really? I mean, everyone does it. They just don't call it that. Some people do it in more detail.
Hmm.
And it's like anything else. A lot of people get that sense of things, they know it, but they don't trust themselves. So trust is number one.
And I believe that, and I guess part of me is also like, okay, every single person in the world at some point has thought of somebody and gotten that phone call, and is that necessarily tapping into those powers, and how do we know when to believe certain things that we believe, you know?
Well, I think for me personally, I can only say I believe in proof and evidence. And long before I worked with law enforcement, uh,
Yeah.
always I believed in proof. So I didn't know what that man by my crib was when he told me things and they were true. I didn't speak of him. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody until my 30s. I
Wow.
never discussed it with anyone, right? And so my curiosity guided me to understand that I don't know. If I don't have absolute proof of what that is, I don't know. I had an instance, my Aunt Katie was dying and she died. And I am in my 30s and I'm lying down on a couch for 10 whole minutes resting. And I hear her voice. Nancy, how are you? Uh-huh. Oh, you've always been a skeptic, she said. And I'm going, well, I still am. I was giving readings, but I'm still a skeptic. Well, I get proof. And so we had a conversation in which she told me a whole bunch of things. She said, your mother will burn the stake at a picnic, and she named everyone dead and alive who would be there. And it would happen next Thursday night. Well, we live far away from my parents. So I called them the next Friday morning, and my mother gets on the phone and says, I had the most unusual dream last night about a picnic, and I named everybody in it. And she screams at me, and I said, and you burned the steak. She said, how you know? I said, well, I had it too, but sit down. She said, what? I said, regards from Katie. She hung up.
Wow.
But that was proof for me.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay? And I wrote it all down when it first happened because I had no clue. Was I projecting that voice? That's a good projection. I sounded just like her.
Yeah.
I had no clue. I don't, which is why I tend to be able to work with law enforcement well, because I don't care what I think it is. I don't care what I'm predicting or whatever, or intuition. I need to prove it or they need to prove it. I'm good with that. I don't, intuition, if you think you're intuitive about something, write it down, record it somewhere. It happens, go back and write down your feedback. It doesn't happen, write down your feedback. I believe what you're doing is setting up a program inside to know when you're there and when you're not.
A learning journal.
Oh, I like that.
I'm coming up with all these terms today. So,
You're so creative. I love it.
um,
Write that
well,
down. Well, wait a minute. That's a headline for you, a learning journal. Maybe you want to make one. Seriously. So
yes.
take yourself and know you've got great ideas. Play with them. Do something with them. I love
Yeah.
it.
So you've
Otherwise,
been
I
talking.
will. You're in trouble.
So you were talking about your some of your work with the police. Can you tell us how you got into that originally and how that's evolved over the years?
Sure. Uh, I've, I know that having been a crime victim more than once, uh, people think me, that's why, you care. Nope. I cared long before that. If I saw injustice, that's what got me out of my shy, painful self. And I would be livid when I was 8, when I was 10. It didn't matter what. So I recognize that I don't know what it is in me, but I can tell the difference between when something's causing harm to others. And I think part of that is being so shy and painfully shy
Hmm.
that I understood what it's like to not get people hearing you. Maybe that was the seed. I don't know. So when I moved to Mount Olive at the time in New Jersey, Bud Lake is part of it, and there was a karate te teacher, Taekwondo, and for my son, and I had a different one. And that when she asked me something, the odd thing is I could have said I don't know, but she had seen an article that I was an animal communicator who found missing pets. Oh, and I just blurted out what I saw, and that led to the detective calling me and coming over and hearing me and working with him until he retired, actually, chief of detective.
Wow.
But he was the one who referred people to me, all the different state troopers in the other towns and any other state. He was the go-to who said, she's real.
Wow. Wow.
Well,
And
we worked everything.
and how many cases would you say you've worked on in number of states and jurisdictions and all that? Have you lost count?
Way lost count, 44 years. But that, what others know when they look at my website, that's just part of my work. It's not my work. It's just something
Yeah,
I can do. So I
that's
think
great.
of all of it that way. If you can do something, make a difference, and people think you can, try it. There's no guarantee. I mean, when people even ask if they've been cleared, like a family member might be cleared about a case, they're fine, and they ask for help. We send back, my assistant sends back immediately a statement that there is no guarantee Nancy will come up with anything at all in an
Wow.
hour. Because you look at the documentaries and it's a riot. Sorry, folks, but in a half
Yes, they make
hour,
it a little too easy.
right, or 44 minutes when it took days or
Yeah.
105 fever landed because I was up day and night on some. Please, it can take weeks, months. We had one go on for I don't know how many years until it was finished because we knew who the murderer was, the detective and I. We couldn't get enough proof for the prosecutor. So and he kept moving. He had a son we were terrified for because he was 6 years old. And
Mhm.
so we made sure that any state he moved to, was notified of the whole story that we think might be. And sure enough, when he went to get a big insurance policy on the next woman in his life,
Oh my
heads
goodness.
up came right away. He, he was denied and they followed him and he was probably eventually convicted. I don't know.
And
But things like that, you have to be willing not to know the result. I do the work. I don't. I found one case was hysterical with the guy who had retired, became a public defender after that. And my husband and I went on vacation to him and his wife, and he takes me out on a case. That was my vacation, death row. And then this case with Walking Tall's son, and that was a movie or so. I don't remember, but his son
um,
was like 6, 7. Anyhow, that was somebody he worked with. They take me to a gas station. I tell them what I see, the murder and how it occurred, not knowing. About 7 years later, when Court TV, I think, was doing a film, they interviewed him, unbeknownst to me, and he told them the story and how I gave them the murderer. I had no idea. He never told me. That's not
wow,
unusual. But that's not unusual.
that's so
They-
strange.
No, it's you no, because I teach a lot of psychic investigators who are curious or want to be or want to just help anyway, right? That you have to be willing not to know anything about the results. Your job is just to give them what you get, period. No, I only got one thing, or I'm not sure. Just give them what you got, leave it alone. You don't have all the other information they have,
I see. Okay.
right? And we don't know when it goes to court, not court. And I don't read news like that. I don't want to know. It's not mine to know,
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
right?
And let me ask you this in terms of like your procedure, and you write in your books how you're going into the home of, let's say it was a serious crime scene, or an object is you're touching an object. How much of it of the work that you do or what you can do is in on location as opposed to by other means?
Hmm. On location, I traveled throughout the country doing some of the work, but a lot of that is not either affordable for them or affordable time off for me because I need a day before and I need a day after to just get rid of so that I don't carry it, whatever I've seen. So I went some, I traveled some. A lot of it was on the phone, and a lot of it was in the offices of law enforcement, whether it was the prosecutor's office, I would travel to, um, all dependent on the situation. Mexico, I've done a lot
Wow.
from there. I don't go. Um, asked to work in Africa. I couldn't do it. I didn't have enough time to do it.
Right, right.
I just don't have time to travel that way for many years. And when I did, I decided I would much prefer traveling for pleasure and rest.
Fair enough. I'm the same way.
Yep.
So you talked about and that, and I like this line because again, this gets back to what how it works for you, but also helping people understand how this sort of intuition can work for them. And you had wrote, "The power comes through us, not from us." Can you
Yes,
could you talk a little bit about that?
sure can. I'm laughing. I wish you could all see his face. He's so cute.
I'm smiling.
Okay, so uh, what I feel is there are two things, personal and universal energy. The universal energy is the life force itself, be it whatever created the origin of life. Uh, that's something that we can raise our frequency, as we now know, to match the heartbeat of the earth, to be part of the universal energies. Personal energy is more like what Gary Zukav wrote in The Dancing Woolly Masters. We're masters of the unique, individualized. energy field. That's the energy that happens when the light wave comes through our unique being, as it does through everything, mountains, valleys, water, everything. The light wave comes in and creates unique energy fields that are highly individual. So I call it my personal and my universal self. And so when I am into the infinite wisdom of the universe and I thank it, I believe I'm getting it as a download in today's world. We can call it that. Before I just said it, sometimes before I could keep my journal on all the things that happened and got feedback, I always likened it to a lightning bolt running through me with something, and I would blurt it out. That's why people backed away sometimes. Oh no, she's calling. What's wrong? And I found out that I never realized how frightened people were of me because I would say, I called my sister and I go, "How's Mel?" Her husband, years ago. I'm laughing. I'm sorry. It's not funny. I swear. I say it, but oh, it frightened her so because he was just playing chess with his son. I said, "Oh, good. I hope they had fun." I hung up. He had a massive coronary. She never wanted me to call again.
Oh my God.
So, and I didn't have a clue about why I was asking about him.
Wow.
So I realized I really had, and I was young,
Yeah.
probably in my early 20s, before I made this my business to understand. It would just keep happening. And I would get in trouble one way or the other. It didn't matter what. But on the other hand, it taught me something is going on. And so when I
Yeah.
got into nursing, that was the time I always felt accepted. It was all accepted.
And why is that, particularly in nursing?
Why? I think it's because nurses and a lot of doctors recognize when somebody's, they'll call it intuition, they call it whatever they want, is heightened. And I remember there was a physician we knew, and we called him 95% nickname because he could walk in, never having seen the patient before, and he'll diagnose and write it down as a guess and then draw the tests no matter what. And in general, just to rule out everything. And sure enough, 95% of the time, he was accurate.
Wow.
Right. And so we like that in others. When it comes to the what I see as tunnel vision about how to treat, that's a different world that I don't agree with at all. But that's me. And that's my nursing training from my first teacher, the term holistic. Loved her, loved everything she taught. And I've been practicing it ever since. So for me, it was natural to say, you got the wrong diagnosis. Here I am, 19, a new graduate, right? And I look at the chart and I look at the patient, I go, do an upper GI. And of that mouth, untrained mouth, I call it. Maybe there should be a song about untrained mouth.
You've written songs before, so I mean,
I know.
don't you gotta add to the repertoire, please.
So not that one, because I would be very inappropriate.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
Um,
that was wonderful. Running a psych unit taught me everything, synthesized it all. It was done. It's how I got into the next work I did after I left. That was the best teamwork job, anything I had ever had before. It,
and
yeah.
Can you talk more why I mean, it brings me to was actually I thought was going to be my next question, and it even makes more sense now is that you loved it, and why did you leave? And you talk a lot about some of the surgeries you had in the book, and can you share a little bit more? Because I think it has a lot to do with maybe your abilities as well, or maybe not.
Right. But you were just using your intuition too, by the way. Just saying. Okay.
Okay.
Just pointing it out. listening to you. And so, let's see, at 19, about a month after that event of getting the diagnosis, uh, a 300-pound patient came in. Turned out her doctor couldn't get her into a proper institute. She was psychotic. She was about 70 at the time.
Right.
Mrs. Young, Jung, ha ha ha, like Carl Jung. So
Right.
I wheeled her into the room. She got up and threw herself on me and sat on me. And 24 months later, I had an emergency surgery. I had spent 11 months in bed. She had ruptured the disc so totally that it crushed my sciatic root and 10 inches of nerve. They couldn't get all of the tissue off. Went through rehab, dot, 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 dot. Married a guy at 24, a physician who did split brain studies, and tried to split my brain open when I was 5 months pregnant. Yes, I can laugh. You don't have to if you don't want,
Not okay.
but it's okay. I know it wasn't okay, but I always say it broke me open because I stood up and I became much more of me in that moment.
Mhm.
And I did warn him and what would happen to him if he ever even looked at me wrong again. But I was stranded, no car, no phone, no money with him in Puerto Rico because that's where the laboratory was for him. Okay, so a year after we came back, I gave birth to my daughter, almost died because of the medical mistakes. They kept me open and went and played golf. Because of the injury sustained by my husband, my uterus wouldn't work. So they put me on something called Pitocin after 38 hours, and then they went and played golf for 10 hours. The woman next to me, they forgot her placenta when she gave birth, and
Oh
two
my
of us came in 2 weeks later dying. We both had about hours to live. She died, and I went signing myself out as soon as possible. You're not telling me what's happening to my life, not after
God.
what you did. And that anger, apparently, somebody who was going for a PhD um, did 3 interviews, 2 women with cancer who survived, and me, because I got off a deathbed through absolute fury. Does that tell you how sweet I am?
Well, it's a
No.
good energy to harness, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, righteous anger. And a woman with righteous anger. Hey, women, you hear that? Righteous anger.
Well, that's
So that I know were seeds planted more for standing up and helping women and men who are abused stand up. I have sat with a lot of victims in my home and other places. I was a helper to the crime victim advocate who wrote the bills on victim rights in the state of New Jersey, the original one. Then the
wow.
second one, Richard Pompelio wrote, who's a lawyer who runs the New Jersey Crime Victim Law Center and a buddy of mine I love. So all of it was, I think, the same thing most of us feel. We look at the world if we're innocent and we go, this is crazy. We have to make a difference. How can we make a difference? Right? So some of us make a difference by pointing out good people. Ring a bell? Okay. You it did ring a bell. That's so weird, isn't it? Really?
It's hard to take credit.
Ah, ha, ha. Okay, well, take credit for what you do. That's good work. It's that
Thank you.
simple. It's
Yeah.
something we have to learn. Hey, I am at least old enough to be at least your mother, if not grandmother. And I am telling you, take it as soon as you can because it's the world to feel good about yourself.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. But it's true. You don't wait. Just the more you like who you are, despite anything else we find, all the dark corners. I'm from Brooklyn originally. Go ask me about dark corners. I had a husband try and murder me. I had a stranger do other things I'm not discussing. I go right ahead. I am fun, furious, and feisty. And that's fine because
What
I like it. It's okay not to be perfect at all. And also to say things to my husband and say, how does he take it? Wow.
Is there anything that brings out all three of those characteristics at once that's fun, furious, and feisty?
Absolutely. Yeah. When I'm working with anybody who has been, in any sense, abused, I need to lift them up and see something else and have hope. And once they have hope, we go on this roller coaster of possibilities of what we can do. And she starts lighting up, or he starts lighting up, and I'm having fun. I am furious at the injustice they go through.
Right.
I will fight with anyone about it and feisty. I will train them on how to contact if you're not getting any results. So many of them, my fun is, do you know who you want to get in touch with? You want to get in touch if you've gone the right path, right? In court, go to the attorney general, ask for an aide to speak to. You think the cops are dirty? Go to the attorney general of the state. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. I don't know, but you go. When I couldn't get child support, I wrote to the White House during Ronald Reagan. I didn't vote for him, but I wrote to him one paragraph. 7 days later, I got a response, and the head of the Uniform Reciprocal Child Enforcement Support Act in the West Coast was assigned to take my case.
Wow.
Right. Go over the head of everyone if you are involved in something where you are not delusional in knowing that you
100%.
have the facts. Step over everyone. You don't get it. Your governor doesn't have it. Go to the top. I don't care who's in office at that point. They have aides. And some of the aides, no matter whose side you're on, are very well trained.
That's
And they're
right.
the law clerks, they're the lawyers, they're the whatever. They know how to look things up. All you need is that to shove things. So I was a confidential informant for Chris Christie. He didn't even know it
Wow.
when he was attorney general. That's how I know these things. I,
Yeah.
I worked with the chief of detective, and there was an inside investigation based on something I told them. And the attorney general's office has an investigative fraud department kind of thing for its own people. I've told a lot of people that, hey, we can't keep them in the dark about education, right? It's not taught anywhere. And if I'm lucky enough to have found out, I want people to know there's more hope. So for me, fun means I opened up new doors for people. I love that.
Yeah. And you've been doing it for 44 years. And
1980, detectives came.
what 19
80 was the first,
1980.
1979 was the first time Detective came calling. And that was actually the first. I started my private practice in 75, early,
Wow.
right?
And and so I mean we're coming on, I mean, 75, so it's been really it's 50 years. And that's amazing. It's amazing. But also
Told you
has
I'm
it
old.
have things changed in 50 years with people's wants and needs and fears and problems? Like,
They have, it's the same thing as we talked about labels. So, no, uh, it's more intense. We have more population worldwide. Uh, I wasn't born until the 40s. So, in the 1930s, there were situations similar to now. There were fear during Vietnam. There were fear. They're crazy. Politics has been politics since cave days, I believe. Earthquakes, people got terrified. My cave is destroyed. Somebody picks up a billy club or a stone and goes to the next cave. That's a nice one. I want it. You're dead. I don't think it's different. It's just a lot more of us, and we have this wireless communication that can confuse people. The wireless network that we are all born with, including all life, is the universal energy that we're all connected to. And
Yeah.
I believe that's the parallel started off as, oh, what if we have ham radio, CBs? I'm talking about recent, ancient Mesopotamia, Egypt. You look at history and you know nothing's new. We don't have outhouses, yay, right? And I can actually visit people uh, far distance and no horse and buggy needed,
Yeah.
no making a raft and hoping it gets me somewhere,
Right.
right? So those things change, but the inners of who we are, no. You read history about people. The diversity versus divisiveness has existed for a very long time, no matter who, what, when, and where. When I think Gandhi said it very well. I hear he asked something about, what do you think of civilization? He said, it's a nice thought. I hope one day we have them. Something to them, paraphrasing, but that was the
Yeah, well, yeah.
concept. And we go through this routinely because there are people who are me oriented only, and there are people who love to make a difference for others well. And that's the split. It's been there forever. Don't know. I mean, we do know enough to know that go back to the roots and heal, and maybe we'll, you know, things will be different, but there are very few tribes, indigenous, that are still around that are peaceful and matriarchal, meaning men and women both rule and make decisions together, which is we now know the application. Roger Sperry said it. He won Nobel Prize in split brain studies, and of course we know a lot more plasticity of the brain. But he said there's the nonverbal intelligence of the brain and the verbal intelligence of the brain, and society does not recognize how important the two must meet well. And I think of it as, well, you have intuition, now you must apply it, right? You have creativity. It's not use, you lose. Right? And so if you repress your creativity, what do you get? You get fear of self. What happens when you're afraid of yourself? You either pent it up inside and go kind of suicidal ideation or depression or whatever, and you eat the foods that destroy you because your mind is going to go, oh, I'm miserable. Let's just fill it with something, right? So either way, we have to apply our soul to every task as best as we can. Even I can sit up with my feet out and do nothing, and I'm still applying my soul to the observation of life itself and having a great time. I work on it. I have to. Otherwise, I'm not whole. WHOLE. I'm whole.
Right.
HOLE. I'm in that hole. So we always have a choice. And what we do about what we've got matters. And so many repress it or express it too much.
I see.
Balance is missing, you know? The person who's sarcastic and snaps all the time and doesn't hear their tone themselves or whatever, they don't care the impact on somebody. That's a lack of empathy,
Yeah.
right? And the person who cares so much that they'll sacrifice themselves and then they find themselves homeless, starving, or out of work and they don't know why and they become angry and hurt and they whatever. We go back and forth and back and forth. We're human. So balance is hard on this earth. And what we've done to the earth has really cost our health a great deal. Every species, a great deal. The plastic in the air, the plastic in the water, the everything. So I look around and go, no, nothing's different, just more of it.
Do you feel, and you talked a little bit about products that people use, particularly aerosols, and how we've heard a lot, and that's becoming much more prevalent both in their use and understanding of some of the chemicals, particularly PFAs, that are being used. Can you talk a little bit about that and
I can talk
how?
an awful lot about that, so I'll make it very condensed.
All right.
The olfactory system is the quickest way to your brain, 22 seconds. What are you smelling? If you look up the dangers of any ingredient you have in any household product, personal care product, anything, and if you look up uh, oh, your pets, what you use for them, your lawn, what you use for that. So I'll give you a very quick, fun story to explain it. I have dear friends who have a golden doodle, and when they lived in a particular place, he needed surgery for, I think, undescended testicles or something, plus some other issue around it. They moved out of state to another state that's the healthiest in the nation, Vermont. In 3 months, he didn't have it. No change in anything else. No change. I have watched here because I get people coming in with their pets who had trouble. And so years ago, one of the shelters told them if he barks all the time, go see her. So they called me, they came. I had cats at the time, two of them on the couch. They were walking with the dog, afraid, ready for him to bark his head off. He's quiet. My cats look at him, yawn, and go back to sleep. I take them into my office. I take the leash off of him. And I said, the door's closed. He can't do anything. Just leave him alone and let's talk. He goes to sleep for the first time since they got him. And I said, it's not witchcraft. I don't have anything in my house that is synthetic. Nothing. Not my clothes. Nothing. I won't. So anything synthetic, I find, out it goes. And if I can donate, if it's in very good shape, I will donate it somewhere because somebody needs something,
Right.
right? But I wish I didn't have to do that and that there was another way. And I have biodegradable everything in garbage bags and anything I can do. So I've always been that way. I have no fragrance in the house, none in my personal care, nothing other than one company because I went to the farms, to the laboratory to learn about seeds and soil content and what testing they do, etc. And I've done that for the last 23, 24 years, something like that. I don't know. And studied the chemistry and went all over the world with them looking and understanding why I get different results with that than anything else. And it's all about the brain and my nose, but also internally. So I've learned to be very careful. And that was a lifesaver many, many years ago from my first nursing teacher warning me, warning all of us. She said, why do you put toothpaste in your mouth that has a caution sign? Go straight to the bloodstream from your mucous membrane. Lights on. And I was 16 when she told us that. I had to wait till I was 18, got my driver's license, drove to the first health food store an hour and a half away from Brooklyn in Great Neck, Long Island. And I've been doing that ever since.
It's a long way to go to get good food.
Well, then it was, well, I didn't get food. I got products for
Yeah.
personal care from France, who knew better. It was better than what we had. When I needed food later, I formed an organic food co-op that was cheaper than going to a supermarket for regular food. I thought, wow, folks, gotta learn. You can find ways. For me, the priority was always the help because without that, I think it's staying in the hospital for so many times. You know, I was opened up again after my second husband, and then I was paralyzed a few times. So I found I knew how to get myself walking again. I knew what to do, and I did what I needed, and it has worked. That I, you know, I'm funny. I know how much I can accomplish at my age. I love it. I'm very grateful to every teacher who's ever shown me that and every mentor I had along the way who opened my eyes to the truth. I don't want to poison the planet. I don't want to leave my kids and grandkids and anybody else's, whether I ever had kids or not, wouldn't matter to me in that sense. I don't want to poison the planet. I don't want to poison wildlife or trees. So we do our best. It's all we
That's
can
all he can do. That's all he can do.
with you.
So we have just a couple minutes left. I just want to talk a little bit, Nancy, about Soul Detective, which is the book behind you, and I think your latest.
Right, nature speaks. So after I wrote The Life of a Psychic Detective, and COVID hit, I was in bed for about a year. So I said I had to do something. So I did a book called All Nature Speaks, and yeah, it was okay, but it wasn't exactly. And I'm used to rewriting everything, putting out a new book or so every 10 years or whatever, cleaning it up, liking that process. I love that process. It's crazy. So Nature Speaks came out just a month or two ago, and it's all about how we communicate with animals. What I love doing in it is the same thing as Soul Detective. As a friend, Pat Wetzel says in her book Bumps in the Road and why she bump in the road and why she says bump in the road, I like talking about all the bumps in the road and what we do about them when we find them. So I did my own personal bumps, and what I did was a lot of creative visualization, a lot of lessons in organic everything, a lot of nature, etc. And so the animals were my teacher, and I have close friends who are in the book now, Nature Speaks, that are a family and the top volunteer rescuer. They rescued over 40,000 dogs since 2004, found homes for them that were appropriate. It's amazing. It's Animal Aid USA, and that was actually founded by Lorenzo Borghese, Prince Lorenzo, the Bachelor, who did all that TV stuff in order to help animals eventually. He was always that way. And so they're in the book called To the Rescue, that chapter. I love it. It was so fun. His sister's shockingly amazing at what she's able to help animals with. Just crazy good. The whole family. So I thought I needed to put them into. And Soul Detective, I needed to spill the beans on all the steps along the way and why, how we do what we do to make ourselves feel more at home in being ourselves, regardless of anything. No guarantee.
Is there anything that you want to leave us with? I guess.
Okay, simple. If love is the greatest power, which I do believe that than anything, and love creates life, however we say it, however we think it, then love yourself.
Beautifully said.
Unconditionally love yourself.
Thank you for that, Nancy. And how can people find out more about you?
My name, whether they go to YouTube, see documentaries, go to my website, it's all the same. It's my name. I put my maiden name in Orlen in order to find my cousins. When Court TV started filming, I said, wait a minute, if I'm going on TV, I want to find everybody I used to know,
Oh, wow.
my schoolmates, my cousins, everybody. And I did.
Very cool.
I used that name, but not my other two husbands' names. So other people who knew me as Preston or Fuchs, hi. Oh, thank you.
Well,
Uh,
well, thank you. And Nancy, it's been a pleasure and visiting with you. And maybe we'll do it again soon.
I love meeting you. And I'm telling you, next time, there will be a lot of questions I ask of you.
All right, I'll be prepared.
In your journal, you'll learn.
My learning journal, right?
Great.